What's up, everybody? This is Rukia Hadassah, and I am sharing some words with everyone. I've been off of Facebook, and yesterday there was a disturbing exchange that took place on social media between two very loved family members, and I chose on yesterday to stay out of it, at least on social media, until I had an opportunity to speak with those who are involved, which would be my daughter Triana and my older brother Charles, and to some extent my sister Kim. We have, at least something happened. I'm not sure how it erupted the way that it did, but I'm choosing to make an official response this way because although I was able to talk to my daughter directly, I was not able to speak to my sister and brother, who have refused to speak to me for a variety of reasons, I'm sure. But the number one concern that I have right now is to address them specifically. I will go on record and say that there were wrongs done on both sides of that issue, but I've spoken to one side, I have not spoken to the other, and this is how I'm choosing to address it. And once I speak these words, I'm going to be done with it. I'm washing my hands, and however people choose to receive it or not, that's on them. But I hope by the time that I'm done, people are going to be left with a greater sense of where I stand and where I have stood over the years concerning all of these people. So, without further ado, let me just start by saying, excuse me, on yesterday, shortly after I woke up, I received a phone call from my son, Joshua, informing me of a disturbing Facebook feud that had erupted between my daughter and my older brother regarding her views about the LGBT agenda and comments that she made about not wanting her son to be gay. That's where it started. My brother, as a gay man, took offense to these comments, although none of them were made directly to or about him. My brother's response was to openly rebuke her on her post, and then screenshot her post and made a post of his own and tagged several other family members in it. Family members, obviously, who are sympathetic to his gay lifestyle. These actions, shortly after, resulted in sort of a summoning of his army of LGBT supporting flying monkeys, if you will, to release an onslaught of verbal attacks upon my daughter and my cousin Derek, who both expressed disdain for the LGBT agenda and not gays in particular. That's important. As for my daughter's response, let's just say she's got her mama's mouth and her daddy's temper. She began to commence a storm of disrespectful comments towards my brother. And again, I addressed these things with her. She's made it clear how she feels, and it is what it is. So I'm not on Facebook for a reason, and this is part of the reason. My other two children, Adria and Joshua, and my cousin Derek, were reporting periodically throughout the day about what was being said. Some of my daughter's comments that got back to me, I found so disrespectful. I contacted her directly and insisted that she delete at least one of them, which she did. And I also asked her to disengage in this conversation, delete the post, and put an end to this toxic discussion, which at that point she did not do. The exchange, from my understanding, ended when my brother and my sister blocked my daughter while tempers continued to seethe. I had spent a good deal of the day trying to decide how to address this, if at all, And the last thing I wanted to do was jump on social media and involve myself publicly in this dispute. So I decided to respond according to the direction of Yeshua in Matthew 18:15. Red letter, Christ talking. He said, "Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother." That is not what Donna, the flesh part of me, wanted to do. But Rukia, the one who wants to walk in the Spirit, took over and sent 2 separate text messages to both my brother and my sister, asking them to speak with me so that we can begin to heal. Mind you, I have not spoken with my brother or my sister in almost a year, following another dispute that happened between my sister and I last year when she visited Houston. Although that dispute had nothing to do with my brother, instead of him trying to repair the breach that happened over a minor misunderstanding, it turned into an all-out war. He simply, as he has always done, stood with my sister and decided not to speak with me based only on her account of what took place. I also called my cousin Kathy, who is close to both my sister and my brother, and asked for her help in facilitating a conversation between us to take place in a calm, orderly, well-moderated environment. Kathy, who was also, rightfully so, very disturbed by this exchange between my daughter and my brother, agreed to do what she could, but didn't seem hopeful that they would be at all open to talking with me, and I understood that. That was evident by the fact that I received no response to either of my texts. I have not seen, nor do I intend to see, the entirety of what was said or posted, but I want to acknowledge my cousin Derek, who seemed to be the only person responding with any semblance of wisdom and intellect about what had taken place. While I had no intentions of ever returning to Facebook, I reactivated my account today to make this statement, and this is all I intend to say on the matter unless and until such time that my brother and sister avail themselves to continue this discussion in a spirit of love and truth. You may not like what I have to say. The one thing you can count on, I will tell you the truth and nothing less. I have no problem with any person identifying as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or anything. I have had many caring and pleasant relationships with people of this persuasion my entire life, including my brother. I've prayed with people who were struggling with their sexual identity and considering suicide. When I attended church, I often invited gay or lesbian couples to attend church with me. My children, when they went to school, were picked up and cared for by the partner of one of my lesbian co-workers every day and spent countless hours playing at their home with their foster children. I offered support and love for another co-worker who was making a male to female transition. And even when my brother officially opened up to me about his own sexuality some 25 years ago, I chose to respond with love and acceptance, not disgust and rejection, and have never wavered once in my commitment to do so. I did not condemn any of these people because I myself have struggled for years with sexual impurity and fornication up until just about 4 years ago, when the Father delivered me from that struggle and washed me in the blood of Hamashiach. Since then, I have resisted numerous temptations and opportunities to indulge my flesh, but have chosen to live according to the word and commandments of Yah and make the decision daily to put my flesh to death. My relationships with my brother, sister and daughter have been some of the most painfully toxic relationships I have ever experienced from my earliest childhood to this very day. But there is never going to be a time when I refuse to choose love. Every one of them are witnesses to the fact that I have forgiven repeatedly, asked for forgiveness even when I did nothing wrong, and refused to lose my temper even when they struck first and struck hard. I am saddened that my mother's legacy continues to be tainted and distorted by hateful rhetoric and actions that sow division and discord rather than unity and love. The reason I left Facebook in the first place was due to some vile rhetoric spewed towards my older daughter, Adria, earlier this year, when she made a post following the breaking news of Jussie Smollett. The moment the story broke, Ruach HaKodesh spoke to me and said, "This is a distraction." I stated this to my daughter that very same moment. I had no intention of stating this openly on social media because I knew what kind of response it would receive, but my daughter felt compelled to share it and made a post simply stating, before any of the details of the alleged attack or attackers was investigated or made public, she stated on Facebook that this story was a distraction. Mind you, she made no comments about anyone's sexuality, the LGBT community, or anyone in particular. She was only commenting on the story. My brother took offense to this as well. And within 48 hours at least, he had written an article referencing my daughter and referred to her, as best I can recall, as, quote, uneducated and brainwashed, end quote. She was left feeling so hurt and confused by this, she deleted her Facebook that day. I was absolutely incensed by it, and I too left shortly thereafter, without ever responding, because I didn't want to say anything that I'd regret or would deepen the division. I have endured my brother's painful insults and vitriol my entire life. Despite that, I have chosen to show love, even as a child when he would make fun of my pug nose and whatever other physical flaws he could find to point out about me. As a matter of fact, one of his vicious bullying attacks on me as a child is one of the reasons my sister and I fell out just last year. When she visited Houston, she invited several family members to join her, as she often does, for a welcome dinner at Papa Do's. I was not going to attend because I was struggling financially at the time, but she insisted and offered to buy my meal. So me and my daughter and my granddaughter all went. When I arrived, everyone was in great spirits. I sat at one end of the table, joined by my sister, my cousin Angie, and my daughter Adria. At some point during dinner, Angie decided to gleefully recall one of my most painful childhood memories about my knuckles on my hand being so black that I left from playing outside with my brothers and sisters and cousins to hide myself in my grandmother's bathroom and scrub my knuckles with Comet, a caustic and toxic chemical, hoping that it would somehow lighten my skin around my knuckles so the teasing would stop. What I didn't realize is that the moment that I resolved that physical flaw, they were going to find something else to make fun of me about. Whether it was my nappy hair or my weight or my clothes or whatever gave them their jollies for the day. One of them walked in on me. I don't remember who, but one of them walked in on me while I was scrubbing my knuckles with Comet. And that's what took their bullying to a whole other level. I have since recovered from those painful memories. Like this and others, due only to the healing and restoration of the Holy Spirit. There's been a work done in me. Hallelujah. I'm giving God the praise for that, because I could still be walking around with those wounds and those pains. So while Angie is hysterically laughing and recalling this painful memory for me, I responded without taking any offense whatsoever. I simply stated that the reason I was putting comment on my knuckles was because I was being mercilessly teased about the hypermelanin in my skin, obviously caused by the changes that were taking place in my adolescent body. Without missing a beat, Angie, my cousin, one of the most obtuse people you're ever going to meet, exclaimed loudly, and my sister is a witness to this, "Charles put us up to that. He always had us picking on you." Now, while I've known this my entire life, to state it openly as an adult would have created serious issues to the already strained relationship I attempted to have with my sister and my brother, who are both fiercely defensive of one another, right or wrong. So the manipulative tactic of encouraging people to attack anyone he doesn't like or that he has issues with, this is something my brother has always done. Attacking, getting other people to attack someone that you got problems with. This is the type of behavior I dealt with from this overly sensitive, narcissistic, gay black man who has been doing this all his life. So the events with my daughter on yesterday and what happened with my older daughter a few months back are just two examples of how he prefers to handle disagreements and misunderstandings with his family. He goes and finds somebody else to go and do his dirty work for him and call names and spew hatred. So when this got pointed out by someone other than me, my sister, who at that point, up to that point, was fully engaged in the conversation, immediately shifted her energy and her body towards the other end of the table and refused to make any further comment. I decided to change the subject and tried to continue having a pleasant evening with my family. Despite this, my sister's energy began to darken towards me, and I left shortly thereafter. Additional encounters with my sister during her visit at that time were strained and tense, to say the least. Things finally boiled over during my last encounter with my sister over a minor misunderstanding regarding the scheduling for dropping off my granddaughter, who she took to Alto to visit family. I fully expected to be available, but when a first day work assignment with a local attorney went over, she insisted on dropping my granddaughter off at the attorney's office where I was working, rather than find one of numerous family members to watch my granddaughter for a couple of hours until I finished up. Rather than argue with my sister while I was trying to work, I simply told her my exact location, went down to meet her as she arrived, retrieved my granddaughter, and took my granddaughter back up to the attorney's office with me on my first day to finish out the day. Although she was mad as a hornet, I intentionally declined to engage her in any conversation other than how we are going to resolve the issue of dropping off my granddaughter. I wasn't trying to have a big fallout with my sister, so whatever she said, I was responding to it. I wasn't trying to change the subject or throw anything else in there, okay? Because I was not going to allow her to gaslight me into an argument that had nothing to do with the problem we were trying to resolve. Where and when to drop my granddaughter off. That's all I needed to know. So my only goal at that point was to get my granddaughter and send my sister on her way without engaging in a vicious argument. Needless to say, that didn't work. And that was the last time I saw or spoke to my sister. Since then, I've continued to strive and struggle and make my way, and have watched as the Father has overtaken me and my family with blessings on blessings on blessings on blessings. There are too many to count or name, but if I had 10,000 tongues, I would praise Yah's name with every single one. We continue not just to survive, but thrive, as the Father looks down with favor and grace and love every single day. His mercies are brand new every morning, and I continue to thank him for what he has done in my life. When these things transpired between my sister and I I was left saddened, angry, and hopeless that I would ever have a consistent, loving relationship with my sister and brother following these and a host of other misunderstandings and disputes. But I had to understand that these things have taken place for a reason, and I may never understand it. I do know that I can trust the Most High in knowing that all things work together for the good of those who love Him. And even though we have difficult and strained relationships with those we'd rather love and embrace, I have put them in the Father's hand, which is the only place they should ever be. I refuse to stress over strained relationships with toxic, hateful, disagreeable family members or anybody that I encounter. When my Uncle Cleo passed this past December, I attempted to share some encouraging words with my family at the funeral about how we can come together and just love one another despite our differences and disagreements. The devil didn't want those words to be spoken, and I was interrupted repeatedly before my mic was finally cut off. I didn't stress about it though, because I knew where the attack was coming from. At that same funeral, during a video slide of my uncle and our family, I saw never before seen photos of my uncles and aunts, and then I saw one of my mother looking so beautiful and vibrant and full of life. It was at that point I lost it, and I just had to remove myself. I was coming to terms with the fact that our family had gone through so much change, separation, illness, and destruction. It was just too much to handle at that moment. So I dismissed myself to avoid being a distraction to the services, and I went outside to release my emotions until my cousin, Frankie, came out to comfort me and escort me back inside. I said this to make it known that I have an intense love and admiration for my family that was cultivated from the moments that I saw in those pictures. When I looked at those pictures next to what my family has become today, I am beyond saddened. But I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that this is the Father's will. Growing up, I was blessed with 9 uncles and 4 aunts who were all like superheroes to me. They could fix anything, cook anything, sew anything, decorate anything, and loved everybody. My uncles were some of the wisest, funniest, and most admirable men I've ever met in my life, besides my 2 fathers. And my aunts, don't get me started. I adored them and wanted to be like them in so many ways. I was often an awkward and goofy girl who sought their approval and validation, which they gave in spades. If it was not for my aunts and uncles, I would have never become the God-fearing, family-loving person I am today. In fact, when my Aunt B saw me as a young adult taking a wrong path, it was her prayers and her correction that snatched me right out of the jaws of hell. And when I had a disagreement with my Uncle Joe during my Uncle CB's funerals years ago, I inadvertently disrespected my Uncle Joe on the telephone. That's me and that mouth of mine. The next time my Uncle Joe saw me, without missing a beat, he let me know that he was not at all pleased. And when I realized my error, I immediately humbled myself and begged his forgiveness, which he gave just as quickly, and we never spoke of it again until his death in 2016. All my aunts and uncles served as role models to the younger generation and fiercely supported one another. All of my aunts and uncles. We've never had a time when we didn't see aunts and uncles, or when I was growing up and my uncles were coming to our house to fix plumbing or repair my cars or my mom's cars or what have you. They were always there. Always. So that's what I'm used to. And that's what I've tried to exemplify as far as I can make that happen. So, as I said, all of my aunts and uncles were a role model to the younger generation. None of them were perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they exemplified love, honor, loyalty, and strength in all of their actions. Some of us in the following generation have sought to and tried to walk in the footsteps of that previous generation, and sometimes we stumble and fall. But those of us who get it, get back up, keep forgiving, keep hugging people who are lying about us, keep smiling with those who would do us harm, and most of all, we keep loving. I'm not down with anyone who is not down with love. If I've done anyone harm, then I apologize again and again and again and again, as often as it takes until my time here on earth is done. I will do it the way Jesus said do it. And if that makes me whatever name or label you want to apply to me, then I will gladly accept it, because I don't want to be pleasing to anyone but the Father. And as long as he accepts me and he sees the blood, nothing, and I mean nothing, and no one else matters. I will continue to hope you all find peace and protection in the Father during these very wicked and evil days. If you haven't figured it out yet, it's Judgment Day. These divisions and separations are a part of his plan. He's separating the wheat from the tare. He's separating the sheep from the goats. So at this point, I've said more than enough. For others who are seeing these divisions and discord in your family, take heart to these words spoken by Jesus the Christ. If you find yourself at odds and separated from your family after years of painful experiences and encounters, here's why. It's time to start figuring out whether you're the sheep or the goat. So in closing, I'm going to read Matthew 10:34 through 42, and that's done, and that settles it. Think not that I am come to send peace on the earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. He that receiveth you receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. He that receiveth a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward, and he that receiveth a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. And whosoever shall give to drink unto one of these little ones a cup of cold water only in the name of a disciple, verily I say unto you, he shall in no wise lose his reward. So that settles it. I'm done with this situation. I love every one of my family. I want to see us all united. But that's not the Father's will, because not everyone in my family walks after the Father or his will or his word. It is not in them to forgive. It is not in them to accept, even though they've been accepted, or forgive, even though they've been forgiven, or apologize, even though they've been apologized to repeatedly. So, all things considered, I'm giving this over to the Father. I love my family. I love you, Charles. If you're listening, no, I love you, Kim. If you're listening, I love you. I want peace. But if that can't happen, go your way. Go your way. I hope you find what you're looking for. But I can tell you right now, this is not the path. I ask the Father to have mercy on you and me and anybody that hears this message. We all need his mercy. We all need his blood. We all need to be restored. So whenever you feel that you're willing to take a step in that direction, and I'm here. And if you don't, I'm still here. That's it. Y'all be blessed.